Look, up on the internet. It's a lotion. It's a cream. Wait, it's Slow Your Roll, the latest product you didn't know you needed. Here at Rebel Massage, we know you have been looking for a kind, simple product that isn't diluted with junk or bogged down with preservatives. We also know that you love the ability to harness your product in a tube for easy, squeezable access. Well, here it is. Slow Your Roll. It's like a lotion, but it's not a lotion because there's no water in it. Slow Your Roll is a labor of love that we created to support you and the incredible work that you do. In true Rebel Massage fashion, it offers a little grip, a little glide, and best of all, a brand name that you can trust. Head over to rebelmassage.com today and get ready to fall in love. What you use matters. Trusting what you use matters more.
Here we are, my last pod of the year. And in true clickbait fashion, I've got a top 5 list for you. I love me a good list. I love listening to other people's lists and deciding if I agree or disagree. But I also love laying out what works in the world of hands-on therapies and why. So hang on to your massage tables because I've got 5 techniques that have remained constants in my 25 years of practice, not because they're trendy, but because they're effective, sound, and reliable. I'm breaking down exactly what these techniques do, why they work, and when to use them. Coming in at number 5, positional release. I wish I started using this one early on in my career. It is the kindest hands-on technique out there for both the client and the therapist. Operating on a very intriguing principle, positional release honors softening and nurturing instead of creating length, applying force, or general aggression. It works by tapping into the nervous system and reducing abnormal proprioceptive signaling. The technique holds the premise that muscle dysfunction often results from a proprioceptive glitch, specifically that the muscle spindles are sending faulty information to the spinal cord about muscle length and tension. This creates what's known as a proprioceptive reflex loop, where the muscle hangs on to an unproductive tone even when the initial injury has passed, kind of like it has drank the Kool-Aid and it isn't interested in shifting out of what it now knows and believes to be true. The protocol, which involves finding a tender point, usually indicated by the client, and then positioning the body into ease to reduce the tenderness, shortens the involved muscle and takes tension off the dysfunctional muscle spindle. You then hold this position for about 90 seconds, which is apparently the time it needs to signal the angry spindle to reset. Without sustained input telling the muscle to maintain protective tension, the muscle spindle recalibrates and returns to its normal baseline tone. So ultimately, this handy technique retrains the muscle to go back to its roots and rest at a healthy length without having to pull it apart. I love this one because it is remarkably effective for situations where traditional digging and lengthening approaches fall short. Severe acute pain, geriatric populations, or clients with trauma histories whose nervous systems often interpret touch as a threat. It's also super useful for the smaller, deeper muscles of the body, like the scalenes, the suboccipitals, and even the QL, which may not be little, but it is deep and infamously irritated. Think about it like using a carrot instead of a stick to get the results you want. Plus, you don't have to drain your own energy stores to see things shift. Landing in at the number 4 spot, friction. Therapeutic friction operates on a principle that might sound counterintuitive, but is actually pretty cool: creating controlled tissue damage. The body has an amazing way of reacting to calculated trauma, kind of like having to push hard to get stronger. It doesn't always feel great in the moment, but the results are worth it. When we apply friction, we create what's known as a controlled microtrauma. By stimulating an inflammatory response, we are increasing fibroblast activity, which increases local blood flow, which then triggers the metabolic cascade necessary for tissue repair. We're essentially telling the body, excuse me, more attention needed over here, please. This technique is particularly effective for adhesions and scar tissue, especially old scar tissue. Forming when collagen fibers lay down in haphazard patterns during healing, adhesions and scar tissue creates restrictions between tissue layers that should glide independently. Normally, connective tissue has collagen fibers aligned along the lines of stress. Scar tissue and adhesions create collagen fiber formations that are chaotic and not very conducive to soft tissue extensibility. Friction breaks these up and begins the body's innate mechanisms that reorganize connective tissue along more functional lines of tension. So you're not smoothing things out necessarily, you're disrupting a dysfunctional tissue architecture so that the body can rebuild it correctly. Plus, it generates heat, which can feel totally relieving when applied correctly. I use friction on my own knee frequently. Having a very old ACL tear, 1985, probably before you were born, my knee is stubbornly stuck. Applying friction directly on my patellar ligament and bilateral ligaments and tendons after a long day of standing, running, dancing, what have you, helps a lot. Friction is amazing for thick regions of fascia as well, like the IT band, the plantar fascia, particularly near the calcaneal attachment where plantar fasciitis typically manifests, and the SI joint. Stuck areas love that heat and the freedom that comes with it. Nabbing the number 3 spot, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. The PNF. I remember learning this technique years ago and thinking I was officially in the big kids club. Proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation is a big fancy term for engaging soft tissue in a way that taps into the part of the nervous system that tells us where we are in space. Basically, PNFs rely on a reflex called autogenic inhibition. Get your anatomy nerd hats on for this one. Autogenic inhibition involves the Golgi tendon organs, or GTOs, which are the mechanoreceptors, receptors that translate mechanical awareness, located at the musculotendinous junction, or where the muscle becomes a tendon, that monitor muscle tension. So basically, we are hyperfocusing on the neuromuscular components of skeletal muscle architecture to increase elasticity and range of motion in problematic soft tissue. More specifically, when you contract a muscle isometrically, so holding it in a solid position, against resistance, you create a high tension level that stimulates these GTOs. After a short hold, the GTOs signal the spinal cord to reduce motor neuron firing to that muscle, causing it to relax more completely than it would at rest. This post-contraction relaxation window is the key element. With the muscle neurologically inhibited, its normal protective tension is temporarily reduced, allowing you then to either access greater range of motion, as we see in PNF stretching, or access more depth into the tissues with hands-on therapies, or both if you're crafty. This protocol has a protocol. Position the muscle in the lengthened state, have the client contract isometrically against your resistance for about 5 to 10 seconds at about 20% of their maximum effort. Instruct them to relax completely, then immediately move that joint into a deeper stretch or sink in deeper to the muscle. Rinse and repeat about 3 or 4 times, and you will most likely see additional range of motion or the ability to increase depth of pressure with each repetition. PNFs are excellent for large muscle groups where chronic shortening limits function. The hamstrings, the quads, the pec major are prime examples. And frozen shoulder has been shown to heal dramatically faster with PNF protocols in place. What I want to highlight about PNFs that put them in my top 5 is their collaborative nature. The client actively participates in their own rehabilitation. This creates better motor learning, longer lasting results, and a more acute self-awareness than more passive techniques. Introducing a client to their own tissue function is invaluable. And if you are not fluent in PNF, there is a lot of research out there on this one. Definitely go check it out. Taking the second spot on the podium is pin and stretch. This one is a classic. It has basically been around since people started trying to figure out their own pain. It's a specific variation of Tui Na, which is a form of traditional Chinese medicine and essentially translates to push-pull. Even if you don't think you know this one, chances are not only do you know it, you probably already practice it. Switching gears from engaging a client to allowing their passive relaxation to take the stage, pin and stretch combines a mechanical advantage with targeted stretching to address specific regions within a muscle belly that traditional stretching can't effectively isolate. Here's the biomechanical principle. Muscles attach to bone at their origins and insertions, creating fixed anchor points. When you stretch a muscle, the lengthening is distributed somewhat evenly across the entire muscle. But if you add a third fixed point, you change the game. By pinning down a section of a muscle belly and then stretching out that muscle, you've created a focused stretch within the fibers between your fixed pressure and its natural attachment site. So all that lengthening force becomes more concentrated. I love this one for so many reasons, but mainly for muscles that are inherently harder to stretch, like the biceps or the tibialis anterior, or even the deep soleus in the calf. Start by shortening the muscle, then pin it down appropriately close to its problem spot, then stretch it out while maintaining that compression. Push and pull, pin and stretch. Add a myofascial glide at the end, and you've got a nuanced detail that professional work demands. After the initial pin and stretch, slowly drag your point of contact along the muscle fibers away from the joint that's being brought through its range of motion. This combination of a targeted stretch with enhanced fascial glide brings this work to the next level. Pin and stretch is a classic technique for a reason. And finally, snagging the number one spot for my favorite techniques, trigger point therapy. Okay, maybe I love this one because I am the owner of many trigger points and have experienced the sweet, sweet joy of therapeutic relief. But that's what I love about it for my clients too. It's incredibly rewarding when we find a trigger point and get it to let go. Seriously, everyone is happy. Trigger points are hyper-irritable spots in skeletal muscle that produce referred pain patterns, commonly referred to as knots in the real world. They are areas where muscle fibers have become stuck in a contracted state due to sustained shortening, creating localized ischemia and resulting in a metabolic crisis within the tissue. Trigger points are born from several factors: microscopic muscle fiber damage, accumulated metabolic waste products, reduced blood flow, and perpetual low-level muscle contraction that prevents normal relaxation. This combination creates a frustrating feedback loop where pain creates a spasm, which creates more pain. The theories of how to manage trigger points are many, but I happen to love the method that has worked for me and evolved with me for years. It hinges on communication. Finding a trigger point is a subtle art form, but getting the client to help you get to its root is a lesson in patience. I often tell people that I can read their muscles, but I can't read their minds. And their muscles may be telling them one thing, but me something entirely different. Kind of like a kid pitting his parents against each other. Once we're there, though, the time and intensity depends on the client's tolerance. Repetition reinforces what we are trying to achieve, and making nice is essential. When executed correctly, trigger point therapy doesn't just release tension, it restores range of motion, it improves blood flow, which aids in tissue healing, and most notably, it breaks the pain spasm pain cycle that keeps people stuck in chronic discomfort. Of course, I love this technique for my own rhomboids and levator scapula, but trigger points can hide in most muscles, and finding them will always be a team effort. Mostly, I love this technique because it's the one that highlights everything I love about bodywork. What we learn from listening to the tissue, what we gain from communicating with our clients, and how much our hands can actually accomplish. It's immeasurable. And it's invaluable. So that's it, my top 5 techniques. But in reality, I love all the techniques that are out there. How can I not? What we do is spectacularly diverse, and I love talking about it. Speaking of talking about what we do for a living, this episode is number 84 of the rebelmt, the final one of 2025, and it seems worth acknowledging what this year held for me. In January, I moved Rebel Massage out of my house and into a warehouse, a physical space for product creation, recording, and operations. February brought us to the AMTA School Summit right in my backyard in Anaheim, California. In April, Rebel Massage sponsored the ABMP School Summit in Denver, Colorado. In the beginning of July, I taught Bodywork for Movement Part 2 in Costa Rica, hosted by the incredible Costa Rica School of Massage Therapy. At the end of July, we found ourselves in Vegas at the World Massage Festival. August brought us an incredible collaboration with ABMP, helping new massage grads get Rebel Massage gift boxes that are, in my humble opinion, beautiful. I also, in August, hiked Half Dome in Yosemite, which wasn't a work endeavor, but it was an intense, soul-filling adventure. In September, my YouTube 100,000 subscriber plaque finally arrived 7 years after hitting that milestone, comically right as my channel approaches 400,000 subscribers, which feels insane to me. I launched a groundbreaking, industry-revolutionizing new product this year, Slow Your Roll, which has been delivered to and loved by many hands-on practitioners. And I have collaborated with some of the greats like Ruth Werner, Dr. Joe Muscolino, and Dr. Ben Benjamin. October was a bit intense for me, though. In early October, I lost my mom to pancreatic cancer. She is in my heart forever, but her absence hits hard every day. And in late October, I marked my 25-year milestone as a massage therapist. Quarter of a century of hands-on work, of learning what my hands are capable of, and of developing relationships in a community that I call home. The proximity of these events, grief and celebration occupying the same month, taught me something about myself. It has reinforced for me that growth and loss can coexist, that professional milestones don't erase personal grief, and that showing up to do the work, hands ready, knowledge applied, matters regardless of whatever else is happening. These top 5 techniques I have highlighted represent 25 years of clinical refinement. They're not trendy, they're mechanically and neurologically sound, clinically reliable, and versatile enough to address the vast majority of soft tissue dysfunctions I encounter. For massage therapists listening, I hope this breakdown gives you something concrete to apply. Technique matters, understanding the mechanisms behind what we do matters, having multiple tools that operate through different pathways matters. In the end, though, spreading happiness matters above all. Thank you to ABMP for this platform, to my team at Rebel Massage for making everything possible, and to you for listening to episode number 84.